The other thing that you'd want to look at is non-slip floors. That's not just for the older people, but even the younger people. It's important to have floors that are secure, that you're not going to be slipping on. The thing that I would be looking at also is contingency reserve funds. You would want to make sure that the strata would be keeping up with their contingency funds. Going to be the area that I live in British Columbia, the contingency funds are going to be mandatory and going up to 10%, but there was a lot of condos that were not paying the proper amount, and so if there was a big cost that took place, they would like a roof or something that had to be repaired, then there would be a special levy that could cause difficulty with people having to pay that. So take a look at the contingency reserve fund, make sure there's adequate money in there to do that. And also to looking at committed annual costs, and that is when I'm saying that, I'm talking about where there's costs that's going to be projected to come out each year or every 2 or 3 years down the road that will have to be paid for. Normally the one I think of there is a depreciation report. And it may be a 30-year report to what they say, but it's going to be looked at every 3 years, the one that they were looking at giving us. And that 3 years, they come back and it's going to cost thousands of dollars again just to update that contingency or depreciation report. So I would say look out and see what's projected out in the future. Also, issues that have constant repair. If you notice that something is being repaired very often, it seems to continue to happen, there's obviously an issue there. Look at the bylaws as well. Before you go in and you start complaining because you don't like this or you don't like that, that's in the bylaws, it would be good to look at those bylaws, and you will, at the AGMs, that you will have some input into what is in the bylaws. Then you've got also a set of rules that can be enforced in addition to the bylaws. So the question you might ask too is, in some cases people are not happy with the fact that the bylaws are there, but they're not being enforced. So look at the enforcement of the bylaws as well. Check the meeting minutes. If it's a fairly new building like ours, it was a new building, there's going to be warranty issues that's going to be coming up. So you would look at how the warranty is coming along and how you're doing with the insurance company and the developer as far as the warranty. In some cases, there's even legal claims that's taking place. And when you get lawyers involved, it's going to cost piles and piles of money. So look and see if there's any claims involved as well. Look at whether there's water leaks in it on a constant basis and see whether that's an issue as well. And is your strata, like ours happens to be, in a high wind tunnel sort of area where the wind really blows and you lose the cushions and different things off your balcony and stuff flies around? That might be something that you would want to look at. And I remember when I was young, they used to tell me that there's 2 things you want to have looked after if you want to have good neighbors. And one is that will cause difficulty with your neighbors is your pets and your animals. And the second thing is your kids. They generally are the ones that's somewhat behind a lot of the neighborhood issues. So that's something that you would want to look at as well. And when it comes to bicycles, I got to tell you, I told you before, they had in our agreement that we bought with, is our bikes went into storage units. Well, not if you got storage in there. You can barely get the bike in there. So I would say that that is very important. It's the second time I mentioned storage there. And I would suggest you look at that as well. Smoking and cannabis is a very addictive habit to have. So I would say that this is something that you should look at and see whether the council is prepared to deal with it. They take some very innovative ways to try to get away with smoking, and so it takes some innovative ways to also to deal with this so that others are not affected by it, because it can run through your home. We had it get into our home. Basically, it was coming through mainly the conduit that the electrical wires was running, so it was coming out of our plugs and stuff like that. It's now fairly good. We got her pretty well tightened right up, so that's good to know. And there's still access to smoking just off the property is all. So that is something that you would want to focus on as well. And recreation facilities is something that is important to have. It is good to be able to have things that you were able to do, but not overdone when it comes to these areas. The developer's history, well, I told you a bit about, I did a lot of research on our developer, and it's good to check and see what the history of your developer is. The research I did on our developer paid off because it showed that he was a good developer. But that's where many will look at first. I mentioned the architects and the engineers are the two that I would now focus on more than I did some of the others. And the biggest of all of these, I would say, is probably the engineers that we had to deal with. Also the use of unproven components. There's all kinds of components that's coming out there, and the government wants to do and use them for environmental reasons. And so they're trying to move those things onto us, and they're using financial incentives for us to buy different things that are definitely unproven. We have lots of times a thermostatic mixer valves for our water. We used to have two taps, and you would have a hot tap and a cold tap, and you were the mixer. You turned this one, or you could turn that one to get the water the right temperature. Now it's so convenient. You just have one, and you can adjust the temperature because of the mixer that you have below your faucet. The only thing is they're supposed to be tested by law, is what I read, every year. So when you get things like this, that's an addition that you've got to continue spending money on and servicing, and they don't work well. The other ones is heat pumps. We're always told that heat pumps, no, they're really good. They're going to work even in colder weather and colder weather. We're improving them all the time, and they give us the subsidies to buy these. But you would want to make sure that in your geographic area, the temperatures you have there, that they would work for you and be appropriate. Also, the dryers, we're going to a lot of ventless dryers now, and it's really bringing water into your home as it's being dumped into the trays. Some is dumped down the drain, depends what kind of a dryer you have. But these are areas that you would want to take consideration in, and they could also have an effect on the condensation in your home. Now, we are going to have down the road a very large part on condensation because a lot of the high-rises now and the new homes are sealed very, very tight, and that means the water cannot get out. So that is why you would want to take a look at some of these new things that's being put on the market now and certainly being promoted. The other thing is how many floors you have, because the more floors and the more people you have more community issues as well. Except for the sheep, these are all animals that we can actually see from our window, the area that they're in, or as we go for a walk, they're right out there. We're walking amongst them. The sheep, we have to cross the bridge on the west side of the lake, but it's very close as well. So we have lots of natural animals around us. This to us is very important. We live in a beautiful urban center, but we have wild animals all around us. You might think they're not wild because they're more used to humans, but at the same time, they still are wild animals. We're going to bring this video and this particular series in these videos to a close now, but we're going to be coming back with many other series as regards to condo living. The first thing that I will be covering in the next series is going to be the first AGM, probably the most important meeting that you're going to have in condo living. We'll help to prepare you for that. The next item after that we'll be covering is a depreciation report. It's a new shining object that everybody's excited about, and it's something that you should know a lot about because it's going to affect the strata fees big time, and it's questionable what it will do other than that. The other thing that we'll be covering is condensation. In units like ours, condensation is something that we have to deal with. How do we get the moisture out of our units? when we have such tightly built units. Community as well. We're living in a community in a high rise, and what can we do to have a good community? Preventative maintenance, we're going to cover that as well and the importance of it. Recycling, because that's going to help to keep our strata fees down, and certainly accept the fact that charity begins at home, and have also community social events to help to build our community. The other thing is warranty. The documents that you should have and keep for all the things that you have in your condo unit and come with it, like your fridge and your stove and all of those things that you want to have and be prepared for dealing with those types of warranty. The other thing is the contingency fees and the changes in the laws, especially here in British Columbia, as regards to the contingency fee at the end or the beginning of next year. You'd want to know what's in the bylaws. You'd want to know what's in the rules. You'd want to know who the building manager reports to, and you would want to know what his responsibilities are as well. And also tips on how to move in furniture and have the right kind of furniture that appropriately fits in your unit, and also does not cover windows and areas like that to create dew points where you're going to get condensation. The environment is also a big focus. You hear a lot about it, and the government puts a lot of subsidies out there for you to use different types of products. Just because the government put lots of subsidies on these home products doesn't mean they're the best for you. Check out things like heat pumps, ventless dryers, mixers. You would want to know about that and see whether that was going to be working in your particular unit. That would be important as well. So that's what you can expect. And we'll catch you on the next series. And on the next series, it's the AGM. Remember, the most important meeting you're going to have in your strata life.